Part 3 of the Serbian integral keyhole chef's knife. Let's get going on it. So I'm gonna do the heat treat on this. I'm gonna start there, and then do some finish grinding, all that good stuff. While I'm doing this, I'm gonna do a few other knives. I've got a little neck knife, this, and then I've got 3 of my pre-cut Kiritsukis. I'm actually going to try to get a Hamon on these, even though they're 1084. I'm going to give it a whirl just to make them a little more interesting. So with my kiln, I've got the Genken vertical kiln, which I love. So with mine, they have to hang, and if I can get these, there we go. So I have to put little pins in these, and then they hang from the little bars. And that's one thing I like about it, is they're hanging, so you get heat all the way around. I mean, I know it doesn't matter too much, but it's kind of nice that gravity's helping keep these straight while they're in the kiln. So my biggest concern is how I'm going to hang this one. I was thinking about putting 2 holes for pins in the back side of this, but I don't think I want to do that. I think I'm just gonna put the material in, and I'm not gonna worry about any sort of support. I mean, it's a chef's knife, not a big chopping knife, so I don't really have to worry too much. I mean, I have to worry a little bit about, the handle staying in and all that, but it's gonna be glued in. I think we're gonna be perfectly fine. So my concern is how I'm gonna hang this. I mean, my kiln comes with these little spring type things that I believe they're used for like stainless, when you have to wrap them in the foil. Then you can just press them over the end, kind of like that, and then you can hang them. I believe that's what they're for. But I'm thinking maybe if I have some stock that's big enough to fit in this hole, I can span it across. My other concern is that I've got to grab a hold of this when it's hot, so I don't want to grab it in a place that I'm possibly going to bend these out of shape and stuff. So I have a little bit of figuring out to do, but first I'm going to find a piece of stock that'll fit in this. Okay, I'm really hoping this is going to work. It's a little bit awkward, but go ahead and plop that in the kiln. It's hanging weird, kind of have to adjust it. There we go. So I'm really hoping that the weight of that doesn't do anything to the steel as it's warming up. But the first thing we've got is we've got to normalize this thing. So we're going to do 1650, cool to black, 1500, cool to black, 1350, cool to black. Then we'll do a 1475 degree quench on this. And all these other knives I'm working with, they are basically the same thing: 1084, 15N20, Damascus, and then the Kiritsukis are just 1084, so they can all be heat treated the same. All right, we hit 1650, and there's been a little bit of a soak, so I'm gonna pull this out and let it cool to black. See how this goes. I'm not going to show you guys the whole process, just because I know I've done videos on this before. But I just kind of want to let you know how this is going to work out when I try to grab this thing. I'm really hoping that I don't squeeze anything out of square. So be kind of gentle with it. Oh, and that's not really going to fit on my cooling rack the way it's supposed to, but that's all right. I think we can deal with it. So here we are. It's on the cooling rack. I'm just going to let it cool. And I'm kind of Looking at this, it looks like everything's still pretty square. So I think we might have been okay on that. So I'm thinking I may have figured out a better way to pick this up. So there's enough thickness on this, enough width on the blade here, that I think I can probably just grab it here under the choil, and we're not going to have any issues with cooling the steel down too quick or anything like that. All right, so I definitely can't grab that spot I was attempting to grab, but I can grab the pin right here, and it comes out pretty nice. And here we are on the quench temp, 1475, and I think we're ready, hoping that I can get this out of there fast enough and quenched fast enough with this weird pickup. I think we should be okay though. That almost didn't fit in there. But I think we are good. Get that bolster cooled down so the heat doesn't transfer and screw up this this quench. And boy, that's looking good. So typically when you quench, if you have a look like this, where all the nickel or the 15N20 is nice and clean of scale, usually means that you've gotten a good quench. Not always, but the majority of the time. It's funny, got a little copper on there from in the kiln, or not in the kiln, but when I was forging it. Anyway, so yeah, that's actually looking like a pretty good heat treat. So this is gotta let this cool down a little more, and then we'll get this into the temper. So we'll just let it hang here and smoke for a little bit, but you can actually see the Damascus pattern in that, and it's looking pretty good. All right, we've got it all heat treated, looking all pretty. So we did a quench at 1475 with 2 tempering cycles at 350 degrees to keep this Rockwell nice and high for the knife. And so now I'm going to go through and grind this down to the thickness that I'm after. And I'm going to try to clean up the front side of this bolster just a little bit. As you can see, it's nice and ugly. And one thing that I did notice is up here, I'm definitely not square inside of here. One of these sides is kind of turned just a little bit. So I've got to go back through on the work rest and try to square that up a little bit before I try to put the handle material in there, because if it's not really close to square, it's going to be a pain to try to get a handle to fit up in there. So heading over to the grinder, I'm going to put a nice fresh belt on so this goes a little quicker. I got a nice fresh belt on here, and I scribed a center line on the spine and on the edge, so as I'm taking the thickness down, I can kind of keep track of where I am, if I've taken too much off the front, the back, too much off the spine side, too much off the edge side. And it's just to help keep it even all the way through. So here we go. So I've got this thing ground up to an 80 grit, and we are at about 3/32, pretty close to where I wanted it. A little thick, but we're a little thicker on the spine or the edge side, but I'm okay with that. So what I've got on here now is this is a J-Flex belt, and it's a 120. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grind this to 120, but I'm also going to, when I turn this on and adjust the tracking over the edge, like this, when I push this knife into it, it's gonna push this belt around the corner so that I can actually pull, as I'm grinding, I can pull the bolster into it, and it'll help grind the corner on this bolster area. So I'll grind to get the flat and clean it up a little bit, and then pull it over here, and then it'll help me get this straight up and down, or put an arc on it, or whatever I plan to do with this. See if we can get a little bit better view of what I'm doing here. I'm adjusting the tracking to pull this off the corner on the left side, and then gonna go 120 here. And then I'm gonna hold this on the belt, and then I'm just gonna push it up into the corner here. You can see that working that bolster right there. So then you pull it off, and you can see we're getting a nice corner in there. So basically, the only thing I have to do is line these up so they're even, and then we'll be good to go. Okay, so I've gotten these corners cleaned up on the bolsters, or on the bolster, somewhat, not perfect. All this shaping is going to be done after the handle's fitted up, so we'll just disregard the ugliness up here for now. And the thickness is down to where I want it, so the next step is I need to grind in the bevels. And I'm only going to grind the bevels up to probably 80 until we've gotten the handle fit up, because I don't know how much damage I'm going to do to this thing in the process of fitting up the handle. So right now I'm just going to decide how high up I want my bevels. And about 1.5 inches, maybe. I think 1.5 inches is too much. We're going to stick with about 1.25 inches. So I've already sprayed this with the red dicum, which I can see things better in the red, I've decided. I don't know if you've ever heard of the term blue blind, but I have, it's only specific blue, but I have an issue seeing things when the blue, like if something's done in blue. So for instance, like sometimes you'll see marquees or something, and there'll be, a word written, like a Ford dealership or something like that, written in blue lights. I cannot read that. I have no idea what it says until I get close enough that I can inspect it closely. It's like the clock on my oven. I can't see that very well. Anyway, but I mean, other than that, I can see perfectly, but there's just certain blues that I can't see very well. And I know I'm going off on a tangent, but I'm working at the same time. But anyway, long story short, I can see the lines better in the red. So I need to do a center line, and then I'm going to go grind these bevels. All right, bevel grinding time. So I don't know if you can see this, but so that delamination that I had in here when we first started after the forging, so you can still see a little bit of it there, but I have no doubt that we're gonna grind that right out when we get the bevels. So I feel like I did the right thing by grinding it and heating it back up and moving the center line over. And I'm going to put my light on here so I can see a little better. Thing is a little hard to keep a hold of. Okay, so while we're here, I put my modified platen on here and squared everything up to the work rest, I hope. So now I'm going to run this through again just to see if I can clean up some of those spots inside of this bolster that might be a little off square. So let's see what we can do here. Okay, I think we're ready for the handle. I got this thing, I got the bevels ground in. They're pretty close over on this side. So this side, I definitely kind of messed this up. I had a little misstep. It's kind of crazy how that works. You know, you're grinding your bevels perfectly, and then you make one little bump and you hit some spots that you're not supposed to, and then next thing you know, you just screw the bevel up trying to fix it. But anyway, it'll be okay. I'll make sure to make some adjustments to get those lined up nice and perfectly. So this back here, I think we got this pretty close. So I put my square in here, and it's very, very close to square. So I think we're going to be just fine fitting that handle up. So now I just need to figure out what handle material I'm going to use. So I definitely cheated and watched a video on how to do the fit up a little bit better, because like I said, I've done something similar to this before, and it's really hard to get the fit to be perfect. And so I watched a video by Salem Straub, which he's pretty amazing. And what he does is he cuts his material really close to this. He marks it and cuts it really close, leaves it a little proud, and then he presses it in there a little bit at a time and cleans off the like pulls it back out, cleans off the material, presses it more, pulls it back out, cleans off the material. So I think that might be the way I'm going to try to do it. I mean, I'll try my best just to cut it and get it in there so it fits, but I think the pressing is going to be the better way to go. Anyway, I've got to decide what kind of material I'm going to use, so we're going to end this video here, and next video we'll get this handle all fitted up and shaped and maybe finish next video, but probably going to have one more after that. So anyway, thanks again for joining me as usual, and we'll see you in the next video.